All right, so we're going to talk about some dangerous fungi in North America. So there's something called what we call death cap mushrooms. So do not eat these. These are responsible for about 90% of mushroom-related fatalities in the world. They look something very similar to what's called a paddy straw mushroom, which are extremely popular in Asia, but do not eat these. Only a few bites of this mushroom has the ability to cause a fatality. They contain deadly toxins called amatoxins, which a lot of the times people thought that they could be destroyed if you cook them or heat them. That is not the case. Even if you cook them and heat them and still eat these mushrooms, you can have some bad stuff happen to you. So a lot of times that people that have eaten these mushrooms, it causes permanent damage to their kidneys and their liver. And even in extreme cases, the only way to survive is if you have a liver transplant from eating these mushrooms. So they're extremely deadly. And another thing that happens is if you eat them, you might not notice any symptoms for a few hours, which can be extremely dangerous because you're like, well, I'm fine. And then it hits you. So again, just always make sure you're knowing what you're eating and knowing how to identify those mushrooms. All right, so we talked earlier about these things called false morels. So again, if you're not experienced forager of mushrooms, you might think that these and the true morels look similar. I personally don't think about them looking similar to each other, but again, if you're very inexperienced, you never know. These will contain a toxic chemical called gyromitrin, which is a carcinogen. So something similar to what you would find in a cigarette. Causes nausea, dizziness, extreme cases, coma and death, and again, that permanent liver and kidney damage, even small amounts of this mushroom if you eat it. All right, and again, we talked about really cool names for these mushrooms. Destroying angel mushrooms does not sound like something that I would like to eat, but they get their names from their pure white appearance. They have that pure white stalk, and again, usually a pure white cap on them. They belong to the same genus as those death cap mushrooms, so don't eat them. In their young stage, they can sometimes be confused with button mushrooms or puffball mushrooms. So again, just make sure you're knowing what you're eating before you actually eat it. They're found in the summer and the fall. They cause diarrhea, nausea, abdominal pain. The symptoms then recede. So again, people think, okay, I'm fine, I'm over it. But then is when you start having issues and you don't get that help and that medical attention that you need. All right, and then the last one called deadly Gallerina mushrooms. Basically what people tell you is never eat any LBMs or little brown mushrooms. A lot of people overlook them, and that's a good thing. They usually don't get that attention, so people don't eat them. It's the ones that are brightly colored, like that chicken of the woods. So simply just kind of overlook and don't eat the little brown mushrooms. These grow on wood, thin ring, smooth cap, and they have a stripe that goes from tan near the tip to blackish near the base. So that's a really good way to identify these. They can be found all across North America, and these are the ones that usually grow on decaying wood in loose clusters. So if you see something that looks like this, don't eat it. All right, so just really quick, some other information. Where do you go looking for mushrooms? And how do you hunt mushrooms? Most mushrooms can be found for only a limited time. Morels, again, are a good time to find in the spring, but a lot of mushrooms can be found in both the spring and fall. Sometimes they appear in the spring and then they kind of recede during that hot Nebraska weather, and then they reappear in the fall. So fall is like the best time to go find mushrooms. In Nebraska, we usually have a season between April and that first hard freeze. So we've had a couple of frosts in Nebraska, but I don't think we have had a hard freeze, at least in our part of the state. I know Chadron has had snow already, so we won't talk about that though. These, a lot of times you can find mushrooms around fallen trees, dead or decaying wood, under pine trees. There's usually a ton of them in the places that you would least expect. All right, and how do you collect them? Collect the mushrooms in a flat-bottomed basket. A lot of people say that if you're collecting multiple species of mushrooms, take a piece of wax paper with you and wrap every species you find. It just helps keep them fresh and separate from each other in case you, for some reason, pick one that is not edible. Like I said, if you are absolutely sure of the species that you are finding, you can clean it in the field. If you are unsure, take the whole thing with you. Take the cap, the stalk, everything, because that is a way to identify it. If you just take the cap or the stalk, it's not really going to help you. And then you want to collect in a mesh bag so that the spores can be released as you walk. It's just a great way to pollinate per se, bad word, but it's a good way to help those mushrooms kind of disperse and repopulate later. All right, so that is all that I have. It was a little bit longer today just because we had a lot of really good information I wanted to make sure that you guys got. And again, I'm so sorry that we kept freezing and going in and out. I'm not sure what was happening. So next week, we do not have any Science of series. We're taking a little bye week here, but next time we come back will be Thursday, October 22nd, same time, 3 to 4 p.m. We're going to be talking about my favorite topic ever, which is going to be snakes. So please register for that if you haven't already. We have a couple weeks left. Next week, like I said, is our bye week. And then we have Thursday, October 22nd, we will have snakes. And then the last one, we're going to be joined with Grace Gard, again, who's on this call today as my co-host. We're going to be talking about Nebraska fish. And if you know who Daryl Bauer is, he's going to also join us. So we're going to talk about non-game fish, so different fish species in Nebraska and some cool characteristics and adaptations that they have. All right, so that is all that I have. Remember, in 2 weeks, join me again for snakes, not next week. I won't be here. But do you guys have any questions? I'll go ahead and stop sharing and open up our question time.
Yes, there were actually a few lingering ones from before. There was someone was using their guide and they have found that bird's nest mushrooms are inedible, but I figured maybe with how many kinds there are, it's possible that it depends on which kind it is.
Yes, that's a good point. I think there was over like 200 different kinds of them, I want to say. So some of them might be inedible, some might be edible, but yeah, it's always a good kind of rule of thumb. If you don't know, don't eat it.
Yep. Someone asked for a side-by-side of Morels and false Morels.
Let's see here. I don't know if I can do a side-by-side.
There is one Google image I found that looks good. I just couldn't share it in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
But it wouldn't pop up.
Okay, but yes, you can always, you guys always can Google that. If you just probably Google search Morel versus false Morel, you will be able to see it. The Morel is easier to identify the true Morel because it has that true honey opinion. Lots of different ads. I think we're back. I'm so sorry, everyone. I have no idea what's going on. It said my internet connection was unstable, so sorry. Never had this happen before. Do we have any other questions?
There were a couple others, sorry.
Yeah.
So why do mushrooms form in a fairy ring formation? Which I do believe there was a good answer in the chat, but I figured I'd let you answer it as well.
I honestly have no idea.
Okay, so they said, I've heard that's because of the way the underground mycelium propagate from a center point, which mycelium, that definitely sounds correct to me.
Yes,
so.
yeah. And again, I'm certainly not a mushroom expert by any means. So, but I do appreciate other people being on this because there are experts out there and I appreciate that.
For sure. And there was one other question. Is there anywhere that you can bring in a mushroom where someone could like help you identify it?
Not that I know of a specific place. I know like Nebraska Extension Office does plants, but I'm not sure if they're mushroom knowledge. The one person that I know of that's very, very good at mushrooms, his name is Chance Brueggemann, and he is with Nebraska Game and Parks and Northern Prairies Lands Trust, and he is in the Beatrice office, and he does a lot of work down at Indian Cave State Park. I can put his email in the chat, and if you send him a picture, I'm sure he is my always go-to person for mushrooms, so he would be a really good contact for anyone that's interested in doing that. So let me find his email here, and I will certainly put that in the chat, and he'll probably get a lot of questions on mushrooms, but he will certainly enjoy it, and he knows his stuff. So
Yeah.
he's actually the one working on a field guide, I think, for Nebraska mushrooms. So
I would say a quality photograph goes a long way too for sending anything.
And like we talked about, it's not just the top part of the mushroom. Take a photo of the cap and the stalk and where it's growing, and all of those things help him identify those as well.
There was a cool question about the different types of fungus associated with prairie grasses and if they have a fruiting body.
I have no idea. That's a really good question.
I have never seen that when I've been in a prairie, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So it's a cool question. And then just a few about how to watch the video and where to find this online.
Yeah, so our videos can be found on the online Game and Parks education page, and it is, my connection must not be working well because my email won't open and I can't get Chance's email for you guys. So let's see, the outdoornebraska.gov, and then if you go to online education, if you go to the page and scroll probably halfway down, it's under the nature videos tab. So if you missed this or know of someone that would like to view this later, it will be posted on there. We are working on getting a new website live, and it is live now, but it's not have this information in it, but it will soon. So for now, go ahead and go to the online education Game and Parks page. Let's see if I can find Chance's email here really quick for you guys.
And thanks to Malcolm for sharing that link to fungusid.com. That's a pretty cool website. I would guess similar to iNaturalist, where you can upload a photo of a mushroom you find.
All right, so I just typed Chance's email in the chat. Again, he works with Game and Parks and the Northern Prairies Lands Trust, and he has a office in Beatrice. Not the best at getting back to you quickly, but he will eventually get back to you if you bug him enough. So if you have any mushroom questions, he's definitely the person to ask. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions or anything, I appreciate everyone for coming today, and remember to join us October 22nd for snakes. We will have some live snake friends, ambassadors join us on that day. So make sure you should come to that. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.